Hey guys, I'm Michael, that's Neil. We are from Minneapolis, home to three things that all of you can't live without: Target, Lucky Charms, and Prince. We're here to tell you about a fourth, Apruve. Apruve is PayPal for business spending. Simply click the Approve button at checkout and charge your purchase right to your company or your client with just an email address. Our goal is to fundamentally change the way businesses buy things online. Does this look familiar? About 70% of all B2B transactions involve two or more decision makers. So that shopper and the authorized purchaser are two different people. That's what creates expense reports, requisition forms, personal cards. About 41% of all business expenses are still on personal cards. Cards on shared drives, cards on Post-it notes, passed around the office, you name it. From the merchant side of the equation, our message is pretty simple. Stop treating your business shoppers like consumers. Businesses are spending money in a very different way, and Apruve is out to help recognize that. We're going to walk through a very quick demo of the system. This is the simplest form of Apruve. Here I am on a tech cocktail page. I'm buying tickets for an event. It's a business expense, so I click Approve. Notice the embedded modal. I never leave the site. You can create an account right here. Let's assume I have one. I'm going to log in here as Cullen, who's our lead software developer back in Minneapolis. The next thing Cullen needs to do is decide who he wants to pay for this purchase. In this case, it's me. Puts in my name, my email, he attaches a little note, and that's it. Apruve's API puts this cart into a pending state. This is key for our merchants. The cart wasn't dumped. We're giving them this huge window to close the sale. It's now up to us to contact that approved payer, get payment, and close the deal. There's the email I received. Someday this will be a notification on my phone. I click it, go to apruve.com. I can create an account or log in. I have a couple payment methods attached to my profile. I choose one. That's it. Our API releases the cart. We send Cullen an email, and he just bought something without using a personal card, without using a corporate card, no expense reports, no reimbursement. I know it was a safe transaction. Magic. We are new. We've been building all year. We just went live with a handful of merchants. We have about 10 that are waiting on us. These are e-commerce companies selling to businesses, as well as software as a service, where there's a huge pain point that I could elaborate on. Our pipeline is big and getting bigger. It's been pretty interesting to see since we launched. We haven't raised any money. We will be raising. Probably in the next 30 days, we'll be closing a round. The big feature we're launching is budgets and teams. So instead of Cullen needing to email me, as long as I've pre-approved him in a budget, the transaction will go through without the manual approval. I was part of the original team that built LimeWire. Anybody remember? All right. And then was an early hire at Zambu, which we raised $14 million for and eventually was sold to AT&T. Our co-founder Neil over there was a software engineer and architect at the big procurement giant Commerce One before going to Concur, the industry leader in expense report management. Neil and I met through a co-working space in Minneapolis called Coco, and we were just chatting about our past and our pain, and I brought up a story at LimeWire where we had to fire a guy for credit card abuse. He brought up a story working at Concur, the industry leader in expense reports, and yet every user he met hated Concur and hated doing expense reports. So we asked ourselves the question, what if we could let people buy the stuff they needed for their job without needing a credit card and without needing to do an expense report? That's basically the origin story for Apruve. We think we're the right guys to do this. We have a background doing startups. I have a background selling ice to Eskimos and raising money and getting deals closed. Neil has built incredibly scalable SaaS-based systems. I can go out and sell every day knowing that the technology is in good hands. This balance and formula seems to be working based on our early traction, the fact that we've executed to date, and we're pretty excited about what comes next. We think we're solving a fairly universal problem in a really simplistic way. Thanks. Appreciate your time. Bring it. And by the way, Rishi told me before coming up here that he was a year and a half behind on his expense reports.
I am actually a year and 2 months, but I concur, and it's not the best program.
Yes.
So I wanted to ask you about selling ice to the Eskimos.
All right.
Could you talk to that?
You want me to talk about it?
No.
Oh.
Let's try to loosen it up here. Could you give me an example of like a merchant here? Because what I got from this presentation is you're putting a payment widget on publisher sites. That seems like a really, really difficult thing to do.
It hasn't. Actually have a 40% close rate right now after the door is opened.
But that's also assuming that I'm going to go purchase on those sites, right?
Yeah. Well, so our sales strategy is really driven around merchants, right? That's our challenge. Is that you can't use Apruve unless it's out there, right? This was PayPal's challenge when they first started too. So our first handful of customers is a guy selling hospital scrubs to nurses, chef uniforms to chefs, and I can't remember the other one. Oh, yeah, uniforms for salons and spas. Professionals needing to buy stuff for their job that need reimbursement. We have a software as a service company going live next week. They sell a product to teachers. They have these teachers that contact them and say, hey, can you email our principal and tell him I want this, and will he pay for it? So there's use cases all over the place.
Wouldn't it be possible, though, to get bigger distribution if you went to companies and helped them manage their employees' expenses? Because then you get 100% of the things that they spend on. What if you replace the corporate credit card with something that works better, the Concur with something that works better? Why do you have to go to the merchants?
So Concur is still about handling expenses after they happen, right? The brilliance of Apruve is that the whole approval process is built right into the payment method. Again, our key is that button needs to exist. I can't go to Target corporate and say everybody needs to use Apruve because it's not in every vendor that they use. So we're really merchant-centric to start with, and we're really relying on a lot of those merchants to push the demand out. And what's been brilliant about this and really interesting is everybody's getting their marketing departments involved because Apruve is becoming this new way to touch their business shopper in a way that they hadn't before.
So let me ask, the quick question I have is, why? Why do you think this is the best method for business expense approval? Because the reality here is about the approval of the expense. It's not about tracking and the rest of the expense side, right?
So again, you have to release your mindset from doing expense reports.
No, I understand that,
Yeah.
but the point is I click a button.
Yep.
My boss gets a little note that says Mihal wants to spend $20 at
Yep.
Spearmint Rhino,
Yep.
and then I go, cool, and then it goes along its way, right?
Yep, so you just made that whole process easier. You don't have to reimburse him. You don't have to reconcile expense reports at the end of the month. There was no spending abuse. About 13% of all business expenses are actually fraud related. Mm-hmm. You saved a ton of time. I mean, there's benefits kind of all over the board, we believe.
Got it.
Well, I wanted to say hello to my Minneapolis brother.
Yes.
I'm from Minneapolis. Yes, oofda, yes. And my question is just a really basic question. Actually, it's one comment and a question. The comment is, make sure you realize the space that you're pitching to. It was very hard to see your slides. So it was very small type. And so it was a little bit difficult, at least right here, but even up there to see sort of the details. You might want to just simplify it a little bit, make the type bigger. I think everyone here has heard of Guy Kawasaki's sort of mantra about 20-point font. And then my question is, how do you make money? Like, what's your revenues? Do you have any revenues right now?
We will, I think, by next week. We
Okay.
just literally went live a couple weeks ago. So we make money just like Visa, like PayPal, so a transaction fee charged to the merchant.
And what's the transaction fee?
Industry average is about 2.9% and
What are you
30 cents.
charging?
2.9% and 30 cents. The second component of our business model is software as a service. So when we upsell you the ability to create teams and budgets for pre-approved purchases so that email doesn't have to happen, we believe people will pay $2 to $4 a user. The third big component and where we want to take this is actually credit. So if everyone knows Bill Me Later, we'd be Bill Me Later for business spending. If you're a controller or CFO of a company, you're pretty used to needing to accelerate cash for whatever reason, and we want to be the vehicle to offer those terms.
So just really quick, sorry, to make sure I 100% understand, the value prop of the product is that you're decreasing the friction between the approval process of the expense report itself.
Sure, yes, that's one,
Okay.
yep.
And so it sits, the customer acquisition has to be going out and getting a bunch of merchants to install this thing, and then they're being charged based on the size of the transaction, not the fact that they're accelerating or reducing the friction on this one action in the back end.
So these merchants are used to paying these fees. They pay them to Visa already. There's no really disruption in their business model at all. Yep. Thanks.